A sitting lieutenant governor just called for a WNBA head coach to be fired. Stephen A. Smith went on national television and asked her one question she still hasn't really answered. And the coach herself stood at a podium, banged her fist on the table, and told her own fanbase to go to hell. All of that happened in the space of 4 days. And it all traces back to one hit, on one fast break, in Chicago. By the end of this video you're going to see the full footage breakdown, hear exactly what Stephanie White said in her own words, not a clipped soundbite, the whole thing, and you're going to understand why this stopped being a basketball story and became something much bigger. Stick with me, because the part everybody gets wrong is coming in the second half of this video, and it changes how you should look at this entire controversy. Before we get into it, if you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is still moving, there's a decision coming from the league office, and you don't want to miss what happens next. August 8, United Center, Chicago. The Indiana Fever are on the road against the Chicago Sky, and it's the first quarter. Sophie Cunningham breaks free on a fast break, nobody near her, clean look at the rim. DiJonai Carrington comes from behind, chasing the play down, and instead of a clean contest at the ball, she swings her arm across Cunningham's face and neck. Cunningham still makes the layup. But she hits the floor hard, and for a second the entire building goes quiet. The referees look at it live and call a flagrant one. Then they send it to review. When it comes back, it's been upgraded, flagrant 2, automatic ejection. The official explanation from the league afterward was blunt. The contact was unnecessary and excessive to a player in a vulnerable position. Even the broadcast team on the call said in real time that it looked like a clear flagrant 2. Cunningham gets up furious, gets right in Carrington's face, and it takes both benches to pull people apart. Carrington heads to the locker room, and that's when this stops being just a basketball story. While Carrington is walking off the court, she posts 2 words on social media, tagging the Fever directly. White privilege. All caps. Now, Carrington is black, Cunningham is white, and that post detonated online almost instantly. It caught the attention of a state attorney general. It got replayed on national shows for days. And it happened before anyone even knew what Carrington herself would later say about it, which we'll get to, because that part surprised a lot of people too. Cunningham didn't let it slide. She pointed out that she'd been in Carrington's exact position before, ejected for a flagrant 2 herself the year before, and never once tried to make it about anything other than basketball. The comments that started the firestorm. Here's where Stephanie White enters the story. In her very first post-game comments, before she'd had a chance to watch a replay, White talked about Carrington's competitive style. "She's gonna play her butt off, man," White said. "She's gonna compete, nobody's gonna go walking in for a layup." She added that she didn't oppose the hard foul, and that she didn't believe Carrington intentionally went for Cunningham's neck. That's it. That's the sentence that lit the internet on fire. No mention, in that moment, of how Cunningham was doing. No pushback on the severity of the foul. Just a defense of the aggression that put her own player on the ground. And almost immediately, the loudest voice to pile on was Indiana's own Lieutenant Governor, Micah Beckwith, who posted directly at the team, "The Indiana Fever need to let Stephanie White go. No solid coach would ever take the side of the opposing team's player who committed a flagrant foul on one of your own players. Terrible coaching. The Fever need to defend their players." Think about that for a second. A sitting state official, publicly demanding a WNBA coach lose her job over one post-game quote. That's not normal, and it's a sign of just how far this traveled in less than 24 hours. Barstool's Dave Portnoy piled on too. So did several national sports commentators. And then Stephen A. Smith got involved, and that's when this really became a story nobody could ignore. Stephen A. Smith asks the question nobody could answer. Smith didn't hold back. On his show, he zeroed in on one specific thing: how does a head coach, standing on the sideline, actively coaching the game, miss the biggest play of the night? "What do you mean you didn't see the play?" Smith said. "You're not watching. We saw it. You're coaching the game up and down the court, it's your job to coach the game, watch the game. How did you not see the play? Now here's the twist, and this is the part most recap videos get wrong. White never actually claimed she didn't see the play during the game. What she said, 3 days later at a separate press conference, was that she hadn't seen a clear slow-motion replay before she gave her first post-game comments. She'd gone straight from the bench to the podium. Small distinction. Huge difference in how you read her original quote. And it's exactly the kind of detail that gets lost once a story goes viral. The fan backlash. Whatever the explanation, Fever fans weren't in a forgiving mood. At the team's next home game, something you almost never see in this league happened. Fans booed their own head coach during introductions. In her own building. In front of her own team. Caitlin Clark later said watching that happen made her feel sick. And White's response to the boos wasn't to soften her tone, it was to escalate. Before that same game, she gave an unscheduled, impassioned statement to reporters. She talked about love, grace, and humility, about her team being united and refusing to be divided, and then, in the same breath, she told her critics, everybody else can go to hell. It was a strange combination, grace and fire in the same 2 minutes, and it split the reaction right down the middle. Some fans saw a coach finally standing up for her locker room under pressure. Others, like Fox commentator Tommy Lahren, argued the emotion felt performative, that White seemed angrier about being questioned than about what happened to her own player. What White actually said, in full. This is the part that gets left out of almost every version of this story, and it matters. In that same press conference, the one where she told critics to go to hell, White also said this, on the record, about the foul itself. Was it egregious? Absolutely. When you have a chance to watch that over and over and over on replay, you can see that. I didn't have that in real time. I take personally any suggestion that I don't 100% always have my players' backs. I ride with them 10 toes down, all the time. They know that. That's not a coach dodging the topic. That's a coach calling the foul egregious, on camera, days after the fact, after she'd actually had time to review it properly. And here's something else that rarely makes it into the outrage cycle. Sophie Cunningham herself, the player who got hit, publicly backed White afterward. She pointed out that White had coached Carrington for 2 seasons at Connecticut, and that recognizing a former player's ability isn't the same as excusing what she did. We have each other's backs, Cunningham said. Coach loves us, it's really the outside noise that's trying to distract us, but we're good. Caitlin Clark backed her too. So did the Fever's team president, who put out a statement saying White had the organization's full support. So you've got a head coach being called for termination by a state lieutenant governor, and simultaneously being defended, by name, by the exact player everyone accused her of failing to protect. That contradiction is the real story here. Not, did White pick a side, she's on record calling the foul egregious. The real story is how fast a single post-game quote, stripped of context, turned into a firing campaign involving a state politician, a media pile-on, and a fanbase turning on its own coach, before most people had even seen what she said 3 days later. The Carrington question nobody expected. Now here's a twist that undercuts the race angle almost entirely. After the outrage over her white privilege post had already spread everywhere, national headlines, a state attorney general weighing in, Carrington herself later said she never actually linked her ejection to white privilege at all. Whatever she meant by that post, by her own account afterward, it wasn't the accusation everyone assumed it was in the heat of the moment. That single detail should have slowed this entire narrative down. It didn't. By the time it came out, the story had already moved on to White, to Beckwith, to the boos, to the "go to hell" comment. Nobody wanted to pump the brakes once it was rolling. The Connecticut connection. One thing that is true, and worth understanding, White isn't a stranger to DiJonai Carrington's game. She coached the Connecticut Sun for 2 seasons, won WNBA Coach of the Year during that stretch, and Carrington's aggressive, physical defense was part of what made those Connecticut teams so tough to play against. That's a real basketball connection, and it's fair to point out. What's not fair, and this is where a lot of the online commentary went too far, is treating that history as proof of some deliberate loyalty or bias, as if White was somehow rooting for her own player to get hurt. There's no evidence for that. What there is evidence for is a coach who, in her first unscripted reaction, complimented a player's competitiveness before fully processing what had just happened to her own guard, and then corrected course days later once she'd seen it clearly. Where this leaves the Fever. So where does this actually leave Indiana heading into the stretch run? Caitlin Clark is having an MVP-caliber season. Kelsey Mitchell has been putting up historic scoring numbers. Cunningham is healthy and, by her own account, fully in White's corner. The front office has publicly backed their coach. The pressure campaign, from a lieutenant governor with zero authority over the team, from national commentators, from a few days of viral outrage, hasn't actually moved the organization. White is still the coach. The locker room, at least publicly, says it's unified behind her. But the boos happened. The lieutenant governor's comments happened. Stephen A. Smith's questions are still out there unanswered in the way people wanted them answered. And the next time White's team is on the wrong end of a hard foul, every word she says at that podium is going to get measured against this exact moment. So here's the real question, and I want to know what you think. Was this a fair pile-on over one unscripted quote from a coach who hadn't seen the replay yet, or did White's first instinct tell you something real about where her loyalties sit? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want to stay ahead of this story as the Fever push into the playoffs, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is not the last time Stephanie White's name is going to be in the headlines this season.